Can I ask you how old you are now?
I'm 72. I think originally our lifespan was 8 or 9 years, and it has changed. I think certainly 120 years is within grasp. 2 weeks ago, I maxed out the bench press machine, which was 100 kilos or 225 pounds, and then lifted that 4 or 5 times.
I started to change my diet when I was 13 because of health issues. Since that, I really experimented a lot, and I got my health back in the end.
I got into Spirulina, and it was life-changing. There was a lot of people that were very enthusiastic about raw foods, and now they're carnivores. They've swung from one extreme to the other. The diet is not the end. The diet is a means to an end. The goal is to experience pure consciousness.
Thank you. Welcome. Today we have a panel of raw foodies, and the idea today was to have variety and to have people come with questions. So we'll start with an introduction, and then you can ask a question to any one of us. Today I'm a host, but I'm also joining as a guest if someone is curious. So the idea today was to have that variety. Here I have George. So George, it's the first time I meet you in person, and I go to not so public usually, but I've heard a lot of amazing things from Laetitia, who's here, from Brandon, and I know you have a lot of experience and a lot to share on the health path, on the nutrition path also. So I'll let you do your own introduction there. I'm excited to have someone with that experience here. I'm excited to learn from you today.
Well, it's been a long journey. I started my experimentation with raw foods in 1973. So probably sounding a bit dated, but the story I like to share sometimes is 1973, 74 New Year's Day, blizzard in New Jersey. My mom's in the hospital, and I'm saying goodbye to drive to Costa Rica to live in a treehouse and be a fruitarian through a blizzard. So, yeah, it was quite a journey. I never made it to Costa Rica, but I did make it deep down into Mexico. And, some challenges. I would maybe think twice about doing it in the spring because the fruit at that point was limited. And I was trying to do only juicy fruits, so it was basically citrus, papaya, watermelon, and pineapple, and I think mango. And I decided that I needed a little bit more variety, and ended up driving up into California, up to Santa Cruz, where it was actually this is still like February or March. It was very cold, and the fruit diet tends to be a cooling diet, works a little bit more friendly in a tropical environment like Bali or Central America. Driving back down into Encinitas, and I think I went maybe a little bit aggressive, so I was doing mostly citrus mixed with a lot of water fasting, and some pretty rapid detox and weight loss. But the journey over the years has been mixed with some periods of fruitarian, mixed with some periods of all raw, and then sometimes raw till 4 with some dinner that's a little bit cooked like quinoa or millet, mixed with some steamed vegetables, raw salad, maybe like 100% raw. Periods during the year of all fruit for maybe 2 months at a time, and a lot of experimenting with juice fasting and shorter water fasts, which I liked. I did do a 21-day water fast in the Philippines, and I had a pretty rough go because I think I was pretty depleted when I went into that fast, like a lot of stress living in Manila. And believe it or not, the fruit in the Philippines is not always the highest quality. They tend to ship a lot of their A quality fruit out, and then they get some fruit from China mixed with some of the leftovers. And so you'd be surprised, but the quality of the fruit was not definitely not as good as Bali.
George,
Yeah.
can I interrupt you for a second there? Because I'd love to go a little deeper into that. But first, get the whole picture. I want to also introduce Alexia. But also, so did you say 1973 you started on this journey? So that's what I meant with a lot of experience. So if I do the math right, it's like, what is it, like 50 years? More than 50 years? Can I ask you how old you are now?
I'm 72.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And more than 50 years on that journey, that's going to be a lot of experience. And today there's also Laetitia here. So, Laetitia, well, you obviously not 50 plus years on that journey, but I know you've had a big experience of healing yourself. Also, you're a coach, you're advising a lot of people on their health. I started with medical media, I think, and then raw foods. And like I said, you have a woman as part of the panel. So, yeah, thank you for being back on the panel.
Thank you so much. Yes, I started to change my diet when I was 13 because of health issues. And yeah, since that, I really experimented a lot with first paleo diet. And yeah, then I got deeper into medical medium and the fruitarian lifestyle. And I still experimented also with like, okay, only liquid, like only soups and raw food and mono eating. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with like different diets because I was just like looking for answers how I can heal myself. And then I also got into juice cleansing and water fasting, and that really changed a lot for me. And I got my health back in the end. So yeah, I think it's very incredible what you can do with your like health in general when you really take care of your body and detox. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Laetitia. And as I said today, I'm the host, but I'm also happy to take questions. So I'll do a quick intro also. I've been on a vegan plant-based journey for the past 8 years with my spiritual awakening. And the last 5 years, I've been what you call the high raw vegan, eating maybe 80% fruit, 90% raw, living here in Bali. And so that's for me personally. And I didn't have any sickness or something, but I just felt gravitating more and more towards this good naturally, that it feels right in terms of ethics and also health and thriving as a human and spirituality too. And also, I have a podcast, my personal one, The Light Leaders, and I'm more recently with the Raw Temple, and I've been speaking to a lot of the leaders in the field. So if you're curious about that too, that's something you can ask. So let's start with let's start with questions. Well, I'd like to start with a question for you, Josh, to start with, and then you can ask the questions. I'd love to know, how was it to start on a raw food journey like 50 years ago compared to today?
Well, I was back in New Jersey when we started this, and I read Arnold Ehret's diet healing system. But back then, there was hardly any vegetarians, much less vegan, much less raw food. So I actually had a couple of people that thought I was so crazy that they wanted to commit me to an insane asylum at that time. So yeah, not a lot of support. You're definitely on your own. And yeah, that's what it was like back then.
So you're happy now today to see that there's some community?
Yeah, it's spread quite a bit. I think, when the Nature's First Law with David Wolf came out around, what was that, 1999, 2000, something like that. Yeah, that really led to a lot of popularization. And with the internet and social media, people have been able to share more. This didn't really exist back then. So other than, reading a few books, yeah, you're on your own pretty much. So it's solo and a little bit alienated. You have to believe in what you're doing, and yeah, a lot of experimentation. So it's, I think, a little bit easier now because there's so much available online. Yeah, some of it not maybe the best, but there's a lot of good stuff out here for sure.
Amazing. And I have another quick question for you, which is, how long do you plan to stay in this Deliman complex?
No, I guess that's up to God. But I'm feeling really amazing especially the last 6 months, and I would say my energy's higher than in my late teens and early 20s, and just feeling really good, and come to a point where I really enjoy sharing and helping people so much, as opposed to getting stuck in just aloof of seeking sensory pleasure. It seems to be very transitory, but a lot of joy out of helping people. So I guess God knows how long you're going to be here, and you make the best of it and try to help as many as you can along the way. So
Do you believe also it's possible to go quite beyond maybe the usual life expectancy? People think of like 80, 90.
well, I think originally it was biblical, like in the Old Testament. I think actually people live to 800-900 years old, and there are a lot of yogis. I was in a Buddhist retreat center for a while, and some of the news were telling me that there was Tibetan monks up in the caves that were 175, 180 years old. There's other stories. There's, forget the name of the Taoist guide of the 256, and he was a ginseng gatherer, and we did about Taoism and Qigong, and I don't think they ate super amounts of food, but I think that was our refill lifespan was 8 or 9 or years. That it has changed because of just downshifting of, breakdown of genetics from the not ideal lifestyle, and then the environmental pollution. But I think certainly 120 years is within grasp, depending on when you started. And there's other things besides just, raw foods is a great tool that can extend longevity and the quality of life, detoxification, but there's other things for rejuvenation and longevity. I think some of the Taoist supertonic herbs like high grade ginsengs and pushubu and some of the other herbs using Taoist supertonic herbs can greatly extend life. And then I think some of the Ayurvedic rejuvenation of Rasayana medicines also have the capability of greatly. There's Rasayanas for the reproductive tissue, as well as Rasayanas for the nervous system, and so rejuvenating those and employing different detoxification methods without getting so. I mean, one of the mistakes I see some of the newcomers or newbies making is you really get into detoxification. That's one detoxification protocol after another, and I think you need to alternate those with detoxification, with rebuilding like this, but and then also incorporating other things like pranayama from yoga. These things can greatly extend life, as well as qigong, like doing early morning qigong barefoot with like some sun gazing, low stress, having some very amazing results with patients and myself using peptide therapy. And so 3 of the leading ideas about aging are systemic inflammation, lack of insulin sensitivity, which we get as we age, as well as mitochondrial downregulation and dysfunction over time. And so when you start to understand methods to repair some of these problems, that can go a long ways towards helping optimize and extend life.
Amazing, thank you. And again, you're usually not so public, so thank you. We're very blessed to have you today. And I definitely have a few more questions based on that, but I'd also like to open the Q&A to everyone. It says we are not anything.
In the mix, because I had a questions. Hi, obviously you have a lot of experience, and now I'm curious on what you feel. You already mentioned like one detox after another is not good, but maybe you have some other things you would like to mention, common mistakes that you maybe did or that you see in the world happening. things we shouldn't do, combinations that we should avoid?
And that's a great question. I think about this a lot because I've gotten to the experience that I've had myself is watching patients and people traverse the landscape. But I think you need to understand that there is a lot of different factors that affect your diet, like the climate, the time of year, where you're living, the work you're doing, the people you're living with, all have an effect. And so, particularly fruit-based diet is a cooling diet. And so, it's a little bit more challenging, although there's a few people that have been very successful with it. Like if we're living in Canada in January, or, I was on a 100% raw food diet while I was in Belfast, which is Arctic type weather. It's more challenging. One, because nothing's really growing that time of year. So you're trying to eat like raw vegetables and raw fruit. And basically those are being shipped from maybe the Southern Hemisphere. And so that's going to create some problems. You want to ideally be eating what's growing in season, what's growing around you. I think the other thing is people get a little over enthusiastic and tend to rush in it. Your cell membranes have to become more porous as you go through the diet and detoxify. So in the beginning, there's a lot of debris, toxins in the colon, like slimy type paste. The cell membranes are kind of clogged up, and so you're actually not assimilating everything you're eating. And so people are getting over enthusiastic and trying to rush into 100% raw or rush into an all fruit diet, and then it can be shocking, and then the pendulum swings. So I'm sure Alex has heard the stories of I don't know about Ubu, but there's a lot of people. I'm from down in the Uluwatu, Bingen area, and there was a lot of people that were very enthusiastic about raw foods, and now they're carnivore, right? So they've swung from one extreme to the other. The pendulum swings back. So not rushing, taking your time. There's that Professor Spirag, who's like a disciple of Eric, and he recommends, maybe I think maybe it's a little bit over the top in terms of transitioning, but the right idea. You want to transition, and if you're transitioning, then there may be periods during the year where, say, you're doing 80% raw, and then it's summertime and fruit's growing everywhere, and it's really incredibly high quality, sun ripened. Then you can experiment with 10 days or 2 weeks or 30 days on fruit. Doesn't mean you have to be fruitarian for the next, year and try to go to extremes. The other thing I think is, this is just my perspective, which I'm sure there's people that disagree with me, but there's kind of some undertones or overtones of the natural hygienist movement, which in theory, really, if we lived in a immaculate, pristine type environment, you can live on 100% fruit or 100% raw food diet and thrive. But the reality is we don't live in a pristine environment. So, I'm a chiropractic physician. I've done training in functional medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. When you start to get an understanding of functional medicine, which is the study of how the environment affects biological systems, you realize that most of us, depending on where you are, some places more than others, are being exposed to glyphosate in the food chain, which disturbs the microbiome. So I had this discussion last night with Brandon, my close friend, and it was about, do we need to supplement with B12? Because some people are saying, if your body's perfectly clean, you manufacture B12. And some people are saying you do need to supplement. And it really requires a deeper understanding of biochemistry. There is the MTHFR gene that's responsible for enzymes that control the methylation pathways. The methylation pathways are basically like little delivery systems of cell tags that go on the cells that help to control detoxification, energy, DNA repair, glutathione manufacturing, a lot of your systems. And so there are these days a lot of people that have genetic variants of that factor, which controls their ability to metabolize B12 and folate. And if you have one of those variants, you may definitely need to be supplementing. If you have a perfect microbiome, you ideally probably could manufacture B12 in your intestine. The problem is the glyphosate just tears apart our microbiome, and even if you're eating really pure, you're still getting glyphosate exposure. There are heavy metals in the food chain that all of us have, even if you're eating perfect clean. If you do a DMSA probation test, which is different than doing a blood serum draw, it's going to bring out the heavy metals that are in your organs and in your cells, and then you actually get to see what the load is in your body. And those heavy metals attach to the cell membrane, and they affect the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane. So they're blocking it, as well as the chemtrails with the heavy aluminum get into the microbiome of the soil and affect uptake of magnesium, zinc, and other nutrients running into the actual plants and fruits. And so when you're dealing with all of this, this creates other challenges, and you can't just, you can, but I just don't agree that none of us need any supplementation. I don't take a lot of, vitamins and mills and pills. But I do take a lot of herbs, and there are ways to detoxify the heavy metals. There's ways to improve your microbiome, and there are some people may actually require supplementation of B12 and folate. So you can't just give these blanket answers. And then the other thing is, rather than trying to rush into just focusing 100%, like getting obsessed with the diet, you make your move, you have an overview of where you want to go, you have little cycles that you do, but it's also really important to integrate other modalities, because you can be 100% raw and obsessed with that, and somebody else could be 80% raw, but actually feeling better and making better progress because they're working on other areas. They're integrating pranayama, they're integrating asanas, they're integrating meditation, they're integrating qigong. And so my advice is to kind of round it out and integrate some of these things with the diet changes rather than just obsessing on the diet. And then the other thing I see is people much too soon get carried away with really long water fasting, which, if you're really, really advanced and it's the right situation, yeah, it's possible to maybe do well on that. On the other hand, a lot of people just get thrown so out of balance and they put their digestive fire out, and this can create a lot of problems. And Eric, if you've ever read Eric, the Mythos Diet, he did a lot of water fasting with a pure fruit diet for 2 years. And I think he did a 24-day, a 30-day, a 40-day, and a 49-day water fast all within 2 years. He was already really detoxified, had great experience, but he did not recommend doing long water fasts. And he recommended more like 1 to 5 day water fasts interspersed with some, fruit and maybe salads and maybe some even steamed vegetables. The thing you have to remember with the salads and the vegetables is that we do not have the enzyme cellulase to digest cellulose, right? And so the fiber that's in vegetables is cellulose. We don't actually have the enzyme to digest that. And so green leafy vegetables are fairly easy, but when you start getting into, because I was the medical colleague of Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life for a number of years, and that is a keto raw food diet, meaning they don't do any fruit, which is really easy to digest, and they're doing 3 salads a day with a lot of flax crackers and up to 150 grams of fat in some of those gourmet raw food meals, like the seed paste and all of this stuff that's mixed in. Very, very, very hard to digest. And this, for a lot of people, was a big improvement. Yeah, the first 6 months, just like some people get a lot better on a carnivore diet the first 6 months because they're cutting all the junk out, and then the problems, and then the digestive problems, the bloating. I do not agree with that. I think you can do some raw gourmet foods, but I think incorporating abundant fresh fruits, which are easier to digest, goes a long ways to improve it. I'll give this to Tisha. One other comment I wanted to make is, we all have a soul. That soul has a seed of God in it, the energy of God, which is joy, love, the things that are probably more non-transitory and fulfilling than sensory gratification. And we all have that energy in us. And so the raw foods, the cleansing, is a vehicle to just clear away the clouds so that energy, which is your natural birthright, starts to shine through. The clouds start to part, the sun starts to come through. And so the diet is not the end. The diet is a means to an end. The goal is to experience pure consciousness or transcend thinking, so you experience your infinite nature. And as the clouds part, you start to experience that in momentary meditation or other periods through the day. And then as it becomes more stabilized, you start to experience it more fully through waking, dreaming, and sleeping. So just remembering that the end is not the diet, it's a means to an end. And yeah.
So, yeah, for me, also a common mistake a lot of my clients also made, and I also did that in the past. So I was eating like way too much fat. So I thought, okay, fruit is not enough, and I need nuts and seeds to be full. So I was eating like fat to every meal, and this is basically just stopping detoxification. And also, when you have a lot of like a high salt diet, then it's also like not ideal if you really want to cleanse your body. Because the salt is also like holding water, and you just can't really like get all the toxins out with the salt. So I would recommend to really go on a low fruitarian diet, on like also with vegetables and a lot of herbs and the greens, because I also think we need supplements because the soil is depleted and you don't get all the nutrients. And especially if we experience symptoms, you already have something going on in our body. So we already have some kind of deficiency. So it's very important that we just help our body the best you can with, like, for example, replacing a meal with a juice or with a smoothie to like just help our digestive system as well. Yeah.
Thank you for watching Raw Talks. Here at the Raw Temple, we are passionate about making healthy, delicious raw foods accessible to more people. As part of this mission, we have developed our own cleansers, products, and restaurants, and we now even have our own Raw Chef Academy. Here's the deal. You come to Bali for our retreats where you will learn professional techniques to create stunning, nutrient-dense dishes that nourish body and soul, many of which we serve in our own restaurants. While learning, you will experience the life-changing benefits of a raw, plant-based lifestyle, combined with daily yoga, meditation, and holistic practices. All of this here in Bali. You'll be immersed in Bali's magical energies, with temple ceremonies, rice terrace walks, and waterfall adventures. Sounds exciting? If yes, check the link in the description and join our next intake of the Raw Temple Academy. And now, enjoy the rest of this episode.
Amazing. Do you want to add something, Drew?
Yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. I know there's a few people that would disagree with me. Dr. Morris, I think, disagrees with me, who I love. I just think he's amazing, just such a beautiful soul, and has contributed so much to this genre. I highly respect him, but he does not like blue-green algae or spirulina. I don't agree with that. I think it's an amazing tool. I would highly recommend experimenting with adding some blue-green algae to maybe your smoothies on an empty stomach in the morning. It's got a soft cell membrane, so the assimilation rate, it basically just vaporizes. It's in your bloodstream in 30 or 40 minutes. It all comes down to light energy, biophoton energy. The fruit would be, basically the closest link to the sun, and vegetables, and then cow, or with meat being the furthest away. The cow eats the grass, which has the sunlight, and then you eat the meat, and then have to, try to break this down and eliminate the toxic byproducts to get that sun in directly. The algae actually is above the fruit in terms of the closeness to the sun. So blue-green algae is number one, then fruit. And so when you add blue-green algae, it's got 22 of the 24 amino acids in the same proportion as mother's milk, with a 300% greater assimilation rate than, people like. You need your protein, and you need amino acids. We don't digest protein, we digest amino acids. But the blue-green algae, I got into chiropractic school in LA and I was 23, and I actually wasn't in great shape at that point. I had kind of damaged my health when I was younger. I was in a high level competitive wrestling from 13 to 16. I was making 98 pounds. I don't know. I don't look like I weigh 98 pounds. I'm about 165 now. So just severe starvation, 200 calories a day, not having water for 5 to 7 days at a time. And some damage, I'm pretty sure, definitely stunted my growth. And when I finally told them to go stick it where the sun doesn't shine, I went from 106 to 155 pounds in 6 weeks. Long story short, I wasn't in great shape when I got to chiropractic school in LA. I was wondering whether I was going to actually be able to complete the program. And I got into Spirulina, and it was life-changing. I did 4 14-day fasts with 14 teaspoons a day on juice. And within 6 months, I was running 70 miles a week, sleeping 4 hours a night with zero fatigue, just going full on stable, centered euphoria till 1 a.m. in the morning, wake up at 5, crystal clear, and just shitting green on my face all of the time. It was life-changing. And so I really am very passionate, as you can tell, about that. And I think it's one of the key missing links if you're doing the raw food diet, and particularly if you're doing high fruit. It just works really well with that. You have to start out slow. It's super cleansing. That deep blue-green color is going to draw toxins out. And if you start too fast, you're going to go into detox symptoms. But working through a graduated increase in fructose, it's not the answer to everything, but it's a really great tool. And I highly recommend. It's just light energy. And to give you one other story, Rand Hackett, who won the 1,500 meter gold medal in the Olympics, that's like a mile long race, and set a world record. And then he started doing blue-green algae, and the next year in the world championships, he took 30 seconds off that world record time. So I've trained a lot of world-class athletes over decades. And it's just amazing. It increases your recovery time. It increases the volume of training you can do and recover, which is basically the threshold is how much you can recover. And it's just been amazing. Your workload can really increase quite dramatically. And those amino acids are precursors for neurotransmitters in your brain. And so it's just going to make you not only feel stronger, but feel much clearer, and kind of a centered euphoria when you start to get cleansed out. So, yeah.
And when you talk about blue-green algae, so spirulina, also chlorella?
Well, chlorella, difference with chlorella does not have a soft cell wall. And so the assimilation rate is much lower. So if you're going to do chlorella, that's fine. You just have to look so it says cracked cell wall on the chlorella. And what this does is it allows for that cleaner uptake. And then the other key thing is just, most of you probably already know a little bit about food combining. The average person has no clue, so I'm sure you've seen it where, people eat their heavy cooked meal, whatever, the grains and the meat or whatever it is. And then they have a piece of fruit for dessert. And it just fruit and smoothies and juices on an empty stomach. I mean, if your stomach's pretty clean, With the blue-green algae, that's digests like in under an hour easy. It's in your bloodstream. Those other foods take 3-4 hours. When you eat fruit afterwards, it just mixes and ferments and causes acid and gas and bloating. And then they're like, fruit doesn't work. It's like, it makes me feel sick. Yeah, because like, I don't know who forgot to tell you that in school, but it doesn't really work that way. So that's another big one. And yeah.
On the algae topic, after interviewing Brian Mirabella, if you hear, he talks a lot about the marine phytoplankton. I tried it for a while. It felt really good too.
Yeah, well, the marine phytoplankton I think is a lot more expensive. But I know what you're talking about. He does also a lot of breath work or pranayama, and so that combination. I mean, what I found with the blue-green algae is that if you're doing it in the juice fast, once you've actually like got fairly cleansed and stabilized, you can go a long time on juice and blue-green algae because you're actually refeeding your body, but with that really easy to digestion. The whole idea of fasting is to save that digestive work, which can be 70% of your energy goes into digestion and elimination, so that you're able to kind of feed, but easy to digest. And I did when I was 42, I did a 72-day juice fast on mostly fruit juice, coconut water, and blue-green algae. And it was, one of those peak experiences of my life. Just, became clairvoyant during that time, like highly clairvoyant, and just very blissful. And you're just, smells, sunshine, all of these things, you actually feel your body able to assimilate some of those. On the other hand, the first 3 weeks of that, I was laying in bed or on the beach most of the time. I didn't have much energy at all, but
Sorry, just on that algae, maybe to both of you. So do you, to be a little bit more concrete and go on the practical side of the algae, do you recommend tablets or smoothies, or what do you, just...
It's a really great question. And, with patients and clients that I work with, I a lot of times recommend the tablets first. Some people don't like the smell or the taste of the spirulina. I find most of that is like, if you're really toxic, you just, I don't find any offense with it if you get fairly cleansed, but it's easier to regulate and to incorporate with the tablets at first. And the trick is, you don't want to start out, like I said, you don't want to start out with a big dose. Like, you want to start out with maybe like 6 tablets in the morning with some juice or some fruit or smoothie bowl or whatever, and just take your time, stay with that for a couple of weeks, let your body get used to it, and then you go up to 9 tablets, and you do that for a couple of weeks, and you go up to 12 tablets, and then you can maybe incorporate a second dose mid-afternoon after your gym workout or whatever, when people tend to get that little dip in energy. It has a real stabilizing effect on blood sugar. And so when I was practicing in Belfast in Europe, which is a really toxic place in terms of diet, most of the population is starting at the morning with blood pudding. If that gives you any idea, lots of alcohol, no sunshine, no exercise, high cancer rate. They look 20 years older than their age. But I got patients started out because, like, rather than taking things away, don't eat this, don't eat that, stop this, I'm like, when I add this. And so when you add that, it has a very stabilizing effect on the blood sugar. And when you stabilize the blood sugar, your cravings for that refined food and the sweets all away. And what happened is, if you're overweight, you're going to lose weight. If you're underweight, you're going to tend to gain a little weight. It's going to bring your body back towards equilibrium. But the whole trick is to not rush it, just like the rest of the bigger picture we talked about, taking your time, going in grad. It's not a race, like taking your time, love yourself, God loves you. I love you. It's a journey, it's not a race. And if you go slow and then work on these other areas and slowly increase the blue-green algae, you can have a great experience. And you're going to notice that a lot of your cravings fall away and you feel more satisfied, because a lot of us are, as Letitia is saying, are nutrient deficient, right? From years. And then even if you optimize your diet, yeah, I mean, you know, that the fruit maybe was picked 2 weeks ago or a week ago, even Bali, some of it's coming from Java or whatever, but I mean, it's a lot harder in the States, you know, like I left Arizona and small town in Arizona, and the fruit was coming from California and Mexico. And I think when I left, I was paying $7 4 years ago for organic peaches, and I just bit into one and threw it in the garbage. I mean, it was unedible, like just no juice, no water, just dehydrated, awful. That you're not going to do well. And so the quality, if you're living on high raw diet, high raw food, the quality of the produce is going to affect your results. If you're eating stuff that tastes like cardboard and was picked 2 weeks ago, it's just not. You're not going to thrive. You're not going to thrive. Right. And so the spirulina acts as a bridge to fill in some of the gaps.
Yes, for my case, I also recommend to start with the tablets because, yeah, the powder can be very strong. And here in Bali, we have a spirulina farm, so you can also access fresh spirulina here, and this tastes amazing. I think it's so good, and you can put it next to salad, or yeah, it's just like it tastes like cream cheese. I think it's really amazing, and it's full of nutrients, it's full of iron, and it's really helping to detoxify heavy metals. And for what I did it in Germany with the powder and the tablets, I also had so strong detoxification. It was also like a body odor is coming a lot when you detox. And so for me, it also helped me to cleanse so much. So I highly recommend it.
What about the combination that people say we need the spirulina to combine with the chlorella because one is like taking the metals out and the other one is binding it? Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, I think spirulina alone is enough in my opinion because chlorella can not really, in my opinion, draw it off safely, the heavy metals. So I would stick to spirulina. Yeah, and if you buy it, I would also take the one from Hawaii. So yeah.
A little bit off topic, but you know how people crave a lot of sweets and stuff, and they say it can be from parasites. Do you have a recommendation of best way to get rid of parasites?
I think we all have parasites, and even the medical doctors in Bali recommend the Balinese and everybody to do what's called Kombatron. Twice a year you do it, and then you follow it up 2 weeks to get the unhatched eggs. But there are a lot of parasitic larvae on the raw vegetables here, and it's definitely an issue. And then we all have parasites from pets and a variety of things, maybe parasites from some time in the past, possible tapeworms, hookworms, liver flukes. There it is, the herbal combination that it's just traditional in Western herbalism. I think Dr. Morris talks about, and it's got like wormwood, cloves. What's the other two?
Like walnuts?
Black walnut, yeah. And there's one more I can't remember off the tip of my tongue, but that's good to do those every 6 months. He actually has a formula for like the bigger parasites, and there's a micro parasite formula that you can also do. But I think doing those twice a year is wise because we all are dealing with parasites, and that definitely inhibits mitochondrial functioning among other things. I think the other thing I was going to say is oregano oil and black seed oil are also really good for your immune system, and they're also good for parasites. And so you can do that along with the herbs for the parasite cleanse. And something you definitely need to do. We all need to do it periodically. Yeah.
I also think alkaline powder is really helpful for parasites because once you do you want to create an environment that the parasites and the eggs don't want to live in. So I don't think you can get it in Bali, but I think everywhere else you can get an alkaline powder.
What is the alkaline powder?
It's like with magnesium and calcium, it's making your body alkaline because when you eat a lot of food that's acidic, so the environment in your body is also very acidic, and also from stress we can get a very acidic environment in our body, and like parasites love an acidic environment.
All right, can we do that on our own? That alkaline powder is that?
Yeah, you can get it in like a Parmesan or ourselves, to put it together. I would not you can get just tablets or like a powder.
Let's have one of The other thing you can think about experimenting with is ozone IV treatments. I'm not talking about the auto chemotherapy where, you know, they're taking out of one arm, running it through the machine, and they're running it back in each. You know, it's really, really strong. You have major die-off, and yeah, you have to be careful where you do that. But there's the lighter version where they draw like a, you know, like a pint, maybe 2 pints of a pint of blood, maybe a pint and a half of blood. And then they add the ozone to that and re-inject it. And so ozone tends to kill parasites and yeah, can be therapeutically used. So that's another thing to consider. Yeah.
Questions, guys?
I just want to ask, what was your reasoning for thinking that the blue-green algae is a higher vibration than fruit?
What you said question? I can hear it again.
What was your understanding of why blue-green algae is a higher vibration than fruit?
It's closer to the sun. I mean, it's all about how close it is to the sun on the food chain is, you know, where that lies in terms of biophoton energy. And it's like that deep blue-green color is sunlight, right? It's pure light energy.
Isn't fruit higher and closer to the sun?
It's not. Algae. You can look it up. Algae is considered to be a fruit in terms of closer on the food chain to the sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't like microphones, is that right? Oh, do I need a microphone? Just not this way. I know what you said about turning curves, because I guess that's something that is missing for many people going rows, like you don't incorporate curves and you don't exercise. So my question for you is what you would recommend people to start with? Like what are the herbs, the tonic herbs you're using yourself? Like you mentioned ginseng, but do you still use any adaptogenic mushrooms or?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. The mushrooms are amazing. The cordyceps mushrooms, the reishi mushrooms. And so in Taoist medicine, they talk about Shen, Jing, Qi, or Qi. And so they all have different effects on different systems, but the mushrooms are definitely longevity and immune modulators. The ginsengs actually upgrade mitochondrial functioning. I personally, I mean, it's the problem in Bali, some stuff's like really hard to procure here. They really have a, just this customs makes it very difficult to import certain things from the United States, whereas United States, you have just instant access to getting stuff. And so before I found that you get spirulina powder here for sure, and then like a little difficulty getting the tablets, which you can get on Tokopedia. I just found there's spirulina micro ingredients, which is organic, and then I just did a lot of research on it. It's vetted to be like super pure. But getting back to your question, I tend to use dragon herbs a lot, and Ron Teagarden is married to a Chinese woman, and just like really high, impeccable standards. And like he's cultivating a lot of it in China, like the ginseng's like really high quality. He's just got really, really deep into it. And so I have three Hoshu Wu formula. There's the Supreme Protector, and the other one of them is mostly mushrooms, and then the other one has some other things in it. So I'm taking those three different bottles, which are combinations of these different things, Monday through Friday, trying to ration it out to make it last. I'm on my last bottle, and I've had it for a year. I brought like $2,000 of stuff into my suitcase when I came back from my last trip about a year ago. And it's just really difficult to get some stuff here that's really, really high quality. That stuff is super high quality. If you are, outside of Bali in the West, I highly recommend Dragon Herbs and looking in there and getting familiar with some of the products. A little overwhelming because they have so many products, but it's just really high quality stuff. And this is the stuff that really can help move us into this really extended extreme longevity, in my opinion. yeah.
Also, as you mentioned, ginseng, you've probably come across in Indonesia, Tongkat Ali. Often they call it the Indonesian ginseng. I take that sometimes it grows a lot in Indonesia. It's always hard to know if it's placebo or not, but I feel it helps me a bit with that stimulation, gym performance. So I don't know what you think of Tongkat Ali.
Tongkat Alley is great because it increases testosterone production. I mean, at least it's great for men. And I have a bottle of Tongkat Alley in my house, that I got at Alchemy, which I'm hopefully trusting that it's bedded in high quality. Who knows for sure, but yeah, that's definitely a legitimate herb for increasing testosterone. I'm not too sure how much women need. I mean, women need some testosterone too. As you get older, I think it's a good idea to have a hormone panel done. And yeah, I mean, you kind of want to get a grip on that. If your testosterone levels as a man or even as a woman fall really low, especially for a man, it's a lot harder to put on muscle mass. That sarcopenia, which is like the progressive breakdown of muscle tissue as we age, it's more magnified. I'm a firm believer, and I think Alex has more recently got into it, is strength training within reason. And for women, if your estrogen levels drop a lot after menopause, then that affects bone density, and it's going to accelerate your decalcification of your skeletal system. And so, looking on x-rays, I just had a patient last week that was like 62 and had me look at her x-rays, and the first thing I was like, oh my God, like, have you had a DEXA scan, because you're missing major bone density in the spine, which translates, also into your hips, and then you fall and then you fracture your hip, and then, we got big problems, right? You start getting compression fractures and things like this. So, the other thing with bone density is, as Letitia was mentioning, if your diet is too acidic, which is most of, modern, standard kind of diet, they're eating a diet that's, like what, percent acidic and 20% alkaline, if that. And then, it actually should be at least 80% alkaline and 20% acid. So if you're too acidic, your body leaches calcium out of the skeletal structure to buffer some of that acid. And so it's one of the leading causes of, contributing to osteoporosis or osteopenia before the osteoporosis. So, yeah, I mean, then you need stress on the joints, like strength training, and, make sure you're getting the right nutrients, which will help, and then make sure your hormones are dialed in. But yeah, you don't want to be having your bone density rapidly evaporate, especially as a woman, and then you get the Dallinger's hump where you start getting compression fractures and tipping over forward and these kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's also with caffeine and also with vinegar, especially also apple cider vinegar. That's also drawing out the calcium out of your bones. So I would also be careful with any type of coffee, chocolate, or vinegar. Yeah, it's also high caffeine. Depends. The darker the chocolate, the more caffeine it has.
You were talking about the testosterone. I would like to see the other side of the women. Like, what would you recommend would help us with our estrogen levels? Since I was sick and I used to be sick, I got healthy with the vegan and also with the alkaline diet. And now I feel like my hormonal journey is not as well as it could be. And so what are your recommendations there?
So in general, sprouts are really good for estrogen. So when you grow sprouts in your own home, like in a jar or something, red clover sprouts are really incredible. Also red clover tea, and also raspberry leaf tea is really good for the hormonal balance. Yeah, and sweet potato in general, to juice it. You can also juice sweet potato. That's also amazing for the hormones. Yeah. Thank you.
you have another one?
Yeah, it's like a double question. The first one was back to the herbs and tonics and adaptogens. Where were you in your raw food journey when you started implementing them? That would be my first question. And then you kind of bounce back on it also, but I would be curious to know what's your fitness routine right now. You mentioned strength training, and that's already very inspirational, like the way you show up. So I'm curious to what you're doing on that level.
Yeah, great question. I had some interest in, some of these super tonic herbs, but really didn't get into it that much, probably until, probably closer around, let's see, I don't know, let's say maybe early 40s, when I'd actually met Ron Teagarden when he was just starting. That's a big operation now in LA. But just started to learn a little bit for him, and then reading and researching and experimenting. But and now I'm really into it because I'm into using all the tools I can get to maximize, optimize functioning, and extend life. In terms, and then the rasayanas are really incredible from Ayurvedic medicine. So I did some studies in Ayurvedic medicine, and they have some pretty incredible herbs for longevity, rebalancing the nervous system, as well as the reproductive tissues, right? And so it's stuff that's more advanced that I don't normally get into, but the males need to have some awareness. I'm not recommending that we all become monks and become celibate, but it takes 40 drops of blood to make 1 drop of semen. Right. And so it's this recreational perspective of we're just going to look at porn or have promiscuous sex and ejaculate all the time because it feels good and gives you a dopamine rush is going to really shorten your life. And I'm not saying you can't have sex. I'm just saying there are ways to have sex and learn to control not ejaculating. And this is more advanced stuff, but it's, that energy is the creative energy. And when it is channeled correctly and stored, it is used for recreation or rejuvenation. And so as you move along the path and as you remove the blockages, eventually you remove the blockages in the Muladhara, or the bottom chakra, or Granthi, or not. And so that procreative energy can move up your spine, and the sensation moving up your spine is the same as ejaculating, only it's going up your spine and actually rejuvenating you, as rather than, you're going to have sex and the guy's going to ejaculate and then roll over and just get away from me. It really changes everything. So that's something that's more advanced, but you need to just think about that. It's not a toy like the West has made into this recreational thing and just, it feels great, whatever. That has a major effect. In terms of strength training, I'm presently doing 4 days a week of weight training, split routine, 2 days a week upper body, 2 days a week like deadlifting and legs and lower body, and 6 days a week of cardio. The limiting factor being how much you can recover, and if you're over 45, there's been studies that show if you do more than a body part more than twice a week, you're actually not optimizing and fully recovering. So, and if you're training more than an hour, some people say 45 minutes of strain with strength training, your testosterone will pretty much max out and start dropping off. And a lot of what you're doing at that point is unproductive. And so, just keeping that in mind, and then making sure you're getting good sleep. Letitia and I were having a conversation about sleep over the last several weeks, but it's a big one. If you're eating really well, you're sleeping well, you have balance in the other parts of your life, then and everything's optimized, then you're going to reap better rewards from strength training. And if you do too much cardio on top of too much strength training, you raise your cortisol levels, which inhibits your testosterone, and then you actually get into a negative feedback loop, and it's actually not productive. So there's a sweet spot there, and I just think that, you need to strength train. If you don't strength train, you're drifting decade by decade. You're losing muscle mass, and it has to do with functionality. I don't want to be 80 or 90 years old and walking around with a walker or be in assisted living. I used to visit my parents in not an old age home, but assisted living, and there were people in there that were 3 years older, or like pretty soon 2 years older than I am, or going to be, and they were sitting with their face in the plate of food and then getting up and eating a walker. And I'm just looking at your independence is gone. You're not functioning. I'm not talking about functioning on a high athletic level. I'm just talking about functioning like you don't need help and you have your independence. And I just think it's important. Do you not feel, Alex, that having the strength training is beneficial?
Yeah, I do actually. I've been a little bit in a gym bro era the last few months. I have a few questions also for you, starting with, I'm curious, you're 72, you're doing strength training. How much can you bench press?
That's a great question. And I've actually been fixating on it a little bit more lately because I'm realizing that I'm just wondering where the ceiling is, right? So, 30 years ago, I was bench pressing 225 pounds 10 times with free weights, but I was also 190 pounds. I'm 162 now. And 2 weeks ago, I maxed out the bench press machine, which was 100 kilos or 225 pounds, and then lifted that 4 or 5 times. And there's no more weight to add on. So now I'm back over to free weights. And first lift I did last week was 182 times. And then I came back 3 days later and did 184 times. And I think in 90 days I'll be at 225 2 times. And then my dips have gone way up. When I first got to Bali, I was laying around doing 2 or 3 hours of pranayama a day, but not actually surfing or strength training, and eating a little too much. And I went into Bamboo Fitness and I was able to do, I think, 10 just body weight dips. And last week, I'm actually taking a week off now to recover, but last week I did 12 dips with 25 kilos attached to my body, which is 55 pounds. So quite a major strength increase. And as long as you go gradual and slow. And then I think Doug Grant just won some powerlifting contest.
That's actually why I was asking, because I think, if I'm right, it was 60 kilo that he was bench pressing. So we're not here to compare, but I'm still going to compare. And the conversion in kilos, but I think it's much more.
2.2 pounds per kilo. So that's going to be about, 135 pounds or something. And he must have lifted more than that if he won the contest. Is that was 60 kilos?
That's what I saw. Maybe someone can double check.
What's the bar? Or because the bar,
bar
is 45 pounds.
Yeah, usually the bar's 20, so maybe it's 20 with 20 on each side. I think it was that.
That's 130. That's 135 pounds, right? So
so that's why I was asking them. Maybe you compete next time and you show who's the boss.
I don't know, man. It's anyway. Yeah, it's all fun. It's all good. I just think that you look better, you feel better, you have more energy, and there's examples out there of people that are in their 80s that have been strength training for the last 20, 30 years, and they look incredible. You want to keep your visceral fat down, the fat, not the subcutaneous fat on your skin, but the fat that's behind the abdominal muscles around the internal organs is a big red flag metabolic marker for physicians for this is increasing your risk of mortality and metabolic disease. So that fat gets trapped behind the abdominal wall, which is guys, they get older and they get that beer belly type effect, where the stomach starts to, protrude. And that's usually visceral fat that's behind the abdominal wall. What that does is it floats around your pancreas, your liver, and your heart, and decreases functioning of the liver and pancreas, and also causes problems with your heart.
I would also like to hear the female side of the whole spectrum theory, give the whole picture also for us. Females on the training side, on the muscle side, like what do you recommend? What is your
Yeah, I think it always depends what you want to achieve. So if you want to build muscle, so then I would also recommend strength training. But a lot of women, they want to be slim and they want to be skinny. So then I would not really recommend to like lift heavy weights, because obviously it will also increase your appetite and then you will eat more. And then, so it depends really what you want. I think for women, I would recommend more light training like Pilates and full workouts. And strength training maybe twice a week. I think that's a good amount to do. But it really depends how you want to look and how you want to look, like your physique to change.
Just healthy.
Yeah, I think in general it's very important to move daily, even only if it's rebounding on a trampoline or if it's walking. I think 10K steps a day is a must for everyone. Just movement every day, stretching, yoga, everything you can do that on a daily basis. I think it's just the consistency that you really do something daily and that really changes it. Because when you then maybe 1 week you're into a fitness routine and then you drop off again, then it's that the body needs movement every day. We need to walk, we need to move. And I think for also like in fat system rebounding is great. And rebounding, walking every day, stretching, that's amazing.
I agree with Letitia on that. I was answering the gentleman in the back's question more with regards to men. We all need strength training. The thing is Letitia's talking about tends to not only tone but move your lymphatic system, which is very important. But we all have our own personal taste. Personally, I do not find a lot of the women that do like CrossFit attractive. I would find someone built like Letitia more like perfect or ideal. It's a longer lines with muscle tone and slender. So, pounding away on upper body heavy weight exercises not only might risk injury, but I just don't find it aesthetic looking. I find good muscle tone in the legs and glutes and abdomen, but not necessarily like six-pack ab. I personally don't find that attractive on women, but just like athletic, good tone, moving. When you do a good yoga routine, it tends to give you some tone, and it tends to squeeze the internal organs and flush the lymph and bring increased blood flow. So that's thing. And then things like she's talking about, like walking, swimming, rebounder, maybe just a little bit of light toning on the upper body, like maybe one set twice a week, but not too heavy, with higher reps on the upper body. To me, tends to look better. But you do need to do some strength training. But I don't think bodybuilding on women to be particularly attractive. But that's me. I just have my own taste. But
I also had a question as we want the fitness topic, and it's probably going to be especially for men. Like for example, now I was saying I was more this couple of months I have an injury, so I was doing less paddle, less surfing, not at all actually. And so I'm doing all gym training. And what excites me is increasing my strength, getting eager also to a certain extent. And as part of it, doing creatine for 2 months. Creatine, when I looked into it, people say it's generally safe, but that's the mainstream. And then you might have a different opinion on it. So what's your opinion on creatine?
I think creatine's great. Within reason. I mean, you have people out on the internet going like, take 20 grams a day, and it like really helps mitigate like a deficit in sleep. I'm not too sure about that, but I take 5 milligrams a day. I know Brandon, my friend in the back that also trains, takes creatine, and we both find that it's beneficial for strength gains. I know Ted Carr, who is basically pretty much all fruitarian and lifts really hard. He takes creatine too. And creatine also increases your mitochondrial functioning. So 5 milligrams a day of a clean creatine, I think is beneficial. Definitely helps with strength gains. I noticed a definite difference when I had creatine for sure.
And yeah, I would also recommend in general to take amino acids and also spirulina and barley grass juice powder. And these are the best. Barley grass juice powder.
Barley.
Yes, that's amazing for just we'll explain. Barley grass juice powder is like a green powder, very high in like has amino acids, protein. It's help your body also to detoxify or head methods as well. But there's important you can buy barley grass powder and barley grass juice powder, and the juice powder is the one you want to get. It's very green, it's very dark, and it's basically the juice dried as a powder. And the other one is just like barley grass, and it's not good and it's not really beneficial.
You can add a link to the YouTube channel. Yeah. It's not so easy.
Barley green, the young barley green powder that Letitia is referring to also, it substantially increases superoxide dismutase, which is a strong antioxidant and cuts down oxidative stress, which is also one of the things that creates aging. It's the reactive oxygen species, which it's reacting to oxidative stress, and the young barley grain. So, Letitia was talking about sprouts before, and it's just amazing the nutrient content when a sunflower green is sprouting into a sunflower green or buckwheat lettuce or alfalfa sprouts or all the different kinds of sprouts. Like the nutrient density in that first 7 days is like really, the enzyme content is super high. And I think that recommendation for the young barley grain is solid. That's a really good thing to incorporate.
I just have a practical question to Natisha. Like the spirulina, what would you recommend when to take the spirulina? With what do you combine? On empty stomach, or is it recommended to combine morning, evening? So some practical things about that.
Yes. So it depends if you take the tablets or the powder. So I think when you have the powder, it's good to put it in a juice. For example, orange juice and spirulina works well, or even coconut water and spirulina works. And I would take it 3 times a day. So in morning, in lunch and evening. And just like a small doses, and then you can just go higher and higher and higher. And here in Bali, you can get the fresh spirulina. It's so delicious. I always have it with like lettuce and or with tomatoes or cucumbers. I think it's really working well with that. And you just eat some tablespoons of the fresh one. And I think it has a different effect on me in general. I think the tablets are just different. I think you need to like really feel what you like more. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And yeah, I mean, the one big thing with the spirulina, depending on what you're eating through your day, if you're on mostly fruit, I mean, your stomach, everything's digesting really fast, so you can continue taking spirulina. I find that the uptake on an empty stomach, like first thing in the morning with juice or in a smoothie, it's just vaporized, man. It's in your bloodstream in 40 minutes. However, if you're doing something like raw till 4, and then you're eating a heavier cooked meal in the evening, it's definitely not going to be as fast an uptake after that. But if you're having just fruit and smoothies during the day, which is what I do, I mean, you can continue, right? And it's just like Letitia said, you can take it 3 times a day, but start out with a small dose because it's super, super cleansing. That deep blue green is just going to pull. And so what happens is if you're not modulating the rate that you're increasing, you start to get different detox symptoms. So the detoxification toxins come out of your body through the organs of elimination. And so you'll notice that can come out in the skin in terms of pimples or rash. You can get nausea from the chlorophyll stirring up toxins and stuff. Just like if you do wheatgrass juice on an empty stomach and you're toxic, you're going to probably want to barf. And that it can come out in the form of runs, headaches, just the different typical symptoms of detox. And the whole thing is, regulating the rate of detox, which was why, mucosal system with air it. He didn't recommend jumping into an all fruit diet or even an all raw diet. He recommended, like, sometimes you're going to do steamed vegetables because vegetables, particularly steamed vegetables, slow down the rate of detox. And so it's all about controlling the rate of detox. You start doing too many things at one time. You know, it's just like when you're doing therapy on patients, like they're like, how long does a session last? Like I'm a massage therapist and it's on how many minutes it's been. It's on how much change you produce with the nervous system. And so, you know, if you go beyond a certain point, like you open up their spinal cord in the spine and all of the, you know, the billions of neurons are opened up, and then you do myofascial release, and then you do trigger points, and then you do acupuncture meridian work, and then you do polarity work, and you keep going. And it's like they'll call you up like an hour or two later and they'll say, you gave me the flu. I don't have the flu. Your detox, I tried to warn you, like more is not better, right? And it's the same thing with anything you're introducing. It's like, you know, it's not a race. Go through, you know, try to structure it, be patient, you know. Yeah, I mean, detox happens over years. It's not like you're going to achieve ultimate purity and clarity in like 6 months. And faster is not necessarily better. So just love yourself, be patient, you know, baby steps, slowly, gradually introduce things, and it'll go much smoother.
I would have one more question on that with Spirulina and with the cleansing effect. So I'm now for more than 7 years on fruit-based diet. I was to study with Dr. Rob Morse, and my experience at least is that I didn't find something stronger for detox, whereas with grapes, for example, is kind of, would you say this would even beat the grapes, the Spirulina?
Well, it's a little different. I mean, you're talking about the Great Cure, you know. Johanna Bryant wrote a book called The Great Cure, where she did, I don't know, long time on grapes. I think she had cancer maybe. So like people have used it to cure cancer, and grapes, like doing a mono grape diet is for sure, like they're astringent, and it's definitely majorly cleansing. And like I said, I highly respect Dr. Morris. I just think he's a beautiful man. He's like brought so many gifts and knowledge and has so much clinical experience. You know, it's not just what you learn in school, it's what you learn in practice over 20, 30, 40, 50 years and seeing, you know, 50, 100,000 patients and how different protocols react. You just can't teach that in school. School is a foundation to teach you how to continue to learn. You know, you get all the microbiology, the biochemistry, the organic chem, the clinical diagnosis, the microbiology, and the on and on and on, right? And that gives you a foundation for learning. And you learn over time through clinical experience, not just studying a book. And one example that I like to use with that is, you know, when I got out of school, I got run over by a drunk, uninsured driver on my bicycle. The guy had 18 beers in him, hit me, downshifted, drove over me, dragged me down the street until he ripped my leg out and almost crushed my head. And so I, you know, the next 7 or 8 years, I went through a lot of suffering. I couldn't sleep, lots of pain. The point being chronic pain syndrome, which you read about in school, but going through it is a whole different experience. You know, like your relationships, your work, your sleep, your depression, self-medicating, all of these things. Like you can read about it, going through it, it's a totally different experience. But getting back to what you said, I mean, it's not one or the other. I think you can do mono grape, cure grape diet for whatever, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days. I know he talks about it. It definitely works for major detoxification, especially during grape season. And and then, you know, incorporating spirulina the rest of the year, or you could even do it with the Great Cure, but it's not like one's better than the other. They're just different. Like the grapes are going to draw harder. The spirulina is going to help to rebuild and rejuvenate. Like I said, you know, all of you, I'm sure, have at one point or another heard like, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein? are you gonna get enough protein, right? And it's like, okay, so first of all, we don't assimilate protein, we assimilate amino acids. So if you eat meat, you have to break that down into amino acids. The blue green algae and fruits are already in amino acid form. And two, mother's milk is only at max 7% protein at the time when your body's growing the fastest. So, all of this stuff with this overemphasis on a too high a protein diet actually strains your kidneys and decreases lifespan. And so, this popularity with taking, 200, 300 grams of animal-based protein a day, as well as the whole obsession with that, as well as like a keto diet or a carnivore diet. People aren't old enough to remember Dr. Atkins. I am. I was like 17 on the wrestling team, 16, doing, basically living on 200 calories a day, like a piece of hamburger with no bun, and some Melba toast and saccharin in my, tea. And it's like, yeah, it's not good, man. Like what happened with the carnivore diet is like, yeah, everybody loses weight in the beginning. Like, yeah, it's great. Like I'm dropping weight, I'm in ketosis, right? And then the problems start to arise a year or 2 years later. And then you see there's a lot of physicians on social media, on YouTube, touting like the benefits of carnivore diet and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then 2 years later, you see, I'm like, I definitely changed my tune. That's actually not maybe the best idea. There's a lot of downsides to that. And we're not carnivores. We're not, I'm not saying like, if you live in Tibet at 14,000 feet in the wintertime, yeah, you might have to eat some yak meat because nothing grows and they're not going to be importing, berries up into Tibet in the wintertime. You might have to have a little bit of ghee or, yak ghee tea or whatever. But in general, we're not carnivores. And so species specific diet, as Dr. Morris says, yeah. But I mean, people go through detox and then they flip out, they go too fast. And then they're like, oh, it didn't work. I got really messed up on raw food diet and now I'm a carnivore. And just like, oh my God, really? Yeah, anyway, I think you get the drift.
Yeah, and with the grapes, I would also think something about the pesticides. I would only do it with organic grapes. Like you do it just, because it's just so bad.
Like 80 to 90 pesticides on inorganic grapes have up to 90 different pesticides in them. So there's that dirty dozen, right? Which is like strawberries, grapes. I don't know. You cleanse the name off. The other ones like
I think in general, berries and also leafy greens should be always organic, and you really need to wash the grapes. Otherwise, it's not really beneficial if you get in so many other heavy metals from the pesticides again.
And one other caveat that I didn't mention: how many of you here know about zeolites? Okay, this is a really good tool, like liquid zeolites with fulvic acid. They are from volcanic ash and they have a negative charge, and so they attract heavy metals and then encapsulate them. So it's actually safe for a pregnant woman to do them. And like I said, we're all getting exposed. I mean, even if you're trying to eat all organic and everything, it's like in the air, it's everywhere. We're all getting exposed to heavy metals. I have been not perfect, but like probably in the top 1 in 1,000 with my diet over the last 50 years. And I saw my doctor and he did a serum draw test. He's like, oh, you got no heavy metals, you're perfect. And then I'm like, no, that's not actually how you do it. You have to do a DMSA probation test, which actually pulls it out of the tissue and collect urine over 24 hours. And when I did that, I actually had radioactive cesium-137. My lead levels were 3 times normal. Even though I've had my fillings out for 30 years, I had high mercury. Lead, when I was a kid, they didn't have unleaded gas. They didn't have unleaded paint. And I used to put the fences dip in my mouth and suck on it in school, So I actually had like really high levels of lead, and that stuff acts like lead. It causes mental cloudiness, fatigue. It inhibits mitochondrial functioning, which is your ATP synthesis or energy. So I encourage all of you, if you get nothing else out today, spirulina and definitely zeolites, and taking your time, like the zeolites, just do 1 dropperful every morning, and it just helps to cross-check some of the ongoing exposure to heavy metals, which is definitely a big deal for everybody on the planet right now. It's going to be a lot bigger deal if you live in LA than Bali, but we all have it. Guaranteed. I can do a DMSA provocation test on any of you, and you're all going to have high levels of multiple heavy metals, cadmium and lead, mercury, right?
Do you recommend a certain brand of zeolite?
So it's really expensive to get them on Tokopedia here. So I have, people bringing them back to me from the States. I like Black Earth, which you can get on Amazon, Black Earth with fulvic acid. And I like it. You can get the big 5.4 ounce bottle, which will last you several months. And I highly recommend it. I think it's a really great tool, a really great adjunct that will really help you out.
Then I like the brand Ginseng. You say that really amazing. Ginseng. Yeah. And for when you have this in the gut, I also have very positive experience with the powder. Actually, if you really have like a lot of bloating, or if you have like heavy metals in the gut, then the powder can really help to draw the heavy metals out of the gut. Please. Yeah, let the powder.
Did I hear correctly that you're 72 years old?
That is correct. Soon to be 73. Thank you. I still have an ego, believe it or not, but I probably have a little bit of vanity left to me. I'm actually probably a lot of vanity, but you try to use it as a tool. So I'm I'm on the 3rd edition of my book, Renew Yourself: Keys to Rejuvenation and Longevity, which is now in a 4-hour video course and getting ready to be launched probably in the next 4 to 8 weeks. So the point I'm trying to get to is people do judge you a lot by the way you look and on social media and whatever. And unfortunately, and I don't think they always look the best. Just pure muscle tone in itself is not a measure of health and fitness. So the guy with the biggest muscles is not necessarily healthiest, which is why, scores of bodybuilders are dying in their 40s because they're doing unbelievable amounts of anabolic steroids. And so big muscles, and then their skin looks pasty and everything else. But the point I'm trying to get to, if you're trying to use it as a tool to help people and encourage people, people do judge you by the way you look, and you have to have a certain amount. You definitely have to look younger than your age. You have to have a certain amount of muscle tone and fitness. So if you're just, I eat raw foods and I'm like, I can lift 20 pounds. Like, it's not going to work, man. Everybody's going in and like bullshit, right? Like, you gotta be healthy, and you have to look certainly younger than your age, and you have to have a certain degree of muscle tone. You don't have to be perfect. Like bodybuilding competition. I don't find that aesthetic anyway. Just too much mass and too stocky. And then the other part is, like I said, it is a balance. It's not. You have to do strength training. You have to detox. You have to eat a good diet. You also need to try to develop a regular program and whatever that might be. Start maybe it's 15 minutes a day, but it's your own little sacred space and routine that you look forward to. It's a safe space, and that is in Patanjali Sutras or Ashtanga Yoga, not Ashtanga Yoga, the form of vinyasa flow. Ashtanga Yoga, the 8-limb path of yoga, is the yama and the nimyamas, which are basically the moral and ethical principles. You don't cheat, you don't lie, you don't steal, nonviolence. Trying to build your sexual fluids, all these things, like basically a modified 10 commandments of yoga or whatever. And then you have the asanas. And what's happened in the West is that the asanas have become, for some people, a end in themselves. In other words, they're just so focused on the asana that it's like, it's like a gymnastics contest for who can do the most elaborate yoga. The yoga is important, but the purpose of the yoga is to form asana, means seat, to form a firm seat, to mean that you have detoxed the body and got some of the stiffness and acheness. So when you sit for meditation, you can sit and not, be aching all over, which kind of disturbs the meditation somewhat. And then the next step is pranayama. And so, starting out with just alternate nostril breathing balances the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And so it's like the gas and the brake. And so what happens is most people in the world, in society, are sympathetic dominant, and they're in a beta brainwave fight or flight type reflex, which is meant for survival. And so that raises cortisol levels, and you cannot actually heal when you're in sympathetic dominant. So alternate nostril breathing, nadi shuddhi, purifies the nadis, which are the subtle nerve channels, and helps to balance the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, which calms your mind and makes your body feel lighter. When the nadis start to become purified, which the diet helps, the detoxification and the pranayama and right lifestyle, then your body starts to get a feeling of lightness to it. And so the contrast would be like somebody drinking alcohol, the next day you just feel like this heavy, lethargic, tamasic kind of inertia. It's the opposite. You get this lightness feeling where you start to get to a point where you actually almost don't feel the body. It feels so light. And so this is the end of your consciousness being bound into this tight casing and starting to expand outward, boundless or unbounded awareness, which is our true nature is infinite, right? And then from there, you start going inward, like pratyahara, sense withdrawal, moving into different stages of concentration and meditation. And so, start, if you're not doing asanas, do restorative yoga for 5 minutes, do alternate nostril breathing for 5 minutes, do meditation for 5 minutes. Start with that, do it every day for 30 minutes until you form a good habit, and then do 7 minutes of restorative yoga and, 8 minutes of alternate nostril breathing and a 10-minute meditation. So I'll be posting in the next week a landing page that has a free, what we just talked about with this. And the goal, the 8th step of Patanjali Sutras or Ashtanga Yoga is Samadhi. And this cafe is named something Samadhi, like the rock temple spot.
Yeah, once upon a time it was Samadhi. Yeah,
right. So Samadhi is super consciousness, and what happens is as you get into all of these things starting to click and get synchronicity, and everything's starting to get dialed in with your body, your mind, and your psyche, you may eventually in meditation experience what's called a brief period of Samadhi, which is a experience of transcending the mind and experiencing pure consciousness. And so when that happens, you have almost zero metabolic rate and your heart just about stops and you have no thoughts, but you're super conscious, the most awake you've ever been in your life. And then when you come out of that, you're just then you start breathing again. And then you have your first thought, which is usually something like, I just was everything and I just knew where all knowledge comes from. Right, that's Samadhi, and the few times I had it on long meditation retreats when I was younger, it's 1,000 times better than the best orgasm you've ever had in your life. Like you just experience what's called dispassion, or there is just no desires. You're desireless because you are totally fulfilled from being united with. It's an actual concrete experience of infinity, which you can't describe in words because it's beyond words. And it's what we're all seeking. We're all chasing after happiness and fulfillment, but through the senses, it tends to be very transitory. And it's like a mirage, you get closer and you acquire this thing that you wanted, and then you get it. And then, you're not so interested in it a couple of weeks later or whatever, the ups and downs of life on the material plane. But, Samadhi is, once you have that experience, if you continue to practice regularly, that your ability to experience that for longer periods of time, and eventually you start to experience a different kind of Samadhi where you can be in activity and have awareness of that infinite nature or pure being through waking, dreaming, and sleeping, which when you have it all the time and it doesn't change anymore, that's basically enlightenment, right? So that's a long journey, many lifetimes. I'm nowhere even close to that. I wish I was, but I keep trying. I keep doing my practice every day. And the point being, just balance, don't fixate on just the diet, like try to integrate these other disciplines. So that's things Letitia talked about, the herbs, the qigong. Just find a practice that you can do and it isn't unrealistic. A lot of you have families or you're living with people or you have kids and you have jobs and your responsibilities. We're not monks, right? So it's like it's householder life for most of us. And so trying to find something that's realistic that you can do regularly, like doing a 30-minute practice every day, months on end, is far more beneficial than getting overenthusiastic and doing 2 hours of meditation for a week and then your mind rejects it. It's like, I don't actually want to do that, man. Like, and then you break the practice. So it's like building a fire. You start with the kindling, right? You don't drop a giant log on and smother the fire, and then you build slowly. And so your mind can accept the practice and you build on a foundation over time. And if you do that, things usually go a lot smoother. Yeah.
So I do have a sort of a follow-up question. So if somebody's sort of your age, like around 70 years old, but has never paid attention to their diet, and going fully raw might just be a bit of a fantasy, but making a transition into adopting more raw foods, how would you recommend going about that?
I'm a big advocate of the raw tofu. I mean, I found what I found through experience is that once you eat that first meal of cooked food, it's so much heavier and you usually want some more cooked food. Whereas, what I do now is I get up and I actually don't eat. I'm doing my yoga, my pranayama, my meditation, my qigong on an empty stomach. And then I'll have a little bit of fresh squeezed tangerine juice and continue. I have to do a little bit of business work. And then and then around 11 o'clock, because I get up usually at 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m., I'm hungry. 10:30 or 11, I'm hungry, right? And then I have my big fruit smoothie, like fresh squeezed juice mixed with some coconut water with fruit blended in there and some spirulina. Meanwhile, in the earlier part of the morning, I've been taking the herbs and, the supertonic stuff on an empty stomach and like trying to hydrate a little bit. And it takes a little bit of discipline because I am like not all year long. I mean, I probably do 2 or 3 months a year of 100% raw, usually like mostly fruit. But the rest of the year, I'm eating a cooked, usually a cooked vegan meal in the evening. And once I do that, you don't want to eat more fruit after that because it's just going to ferment. So that works really well for me. And that is kind of what I advocate, like in my book and in my course for the general population, is this raw tofu, and then try to eat a healthy dinner, maybe like 50% raw, like have a salad with it, maybe a blended soup. Quinoa and millet aren't actually grains, they're seeds, right? So they're not acid forming, but they have a complete amino acid profile. Some steamed vegetables, in the wintertime, like even in Arizona, it's freaking freezing cold up in the mountains. Like the last thing I want to do is eat a piece of watermelon for dinner when it's like snowing outside. So like squashes are all over the place, but you can't really eat. You can, but it doesn't always taste great, like raw butternut squash. So I make a soup, it breaks down the cellulose and actually makes it easier to digest. You put a little bit of ginger in there, just a tad of like something to sweeten it, just a little bit of like sea salt, and you blend that up, and maybe something creamy like coconut cream. Super easy to digest, very soothing, it just digests super easy, right? Maybe have a little bit of raw salad with that, some mori rolls like that. And if you do that, I'm more interested in what the masses can do, not like idealistic. And then, we flip out and are carnivore 6 months later. The average person that lives with a family and is working and lives like in the United States, Canada, or Europe, like the fallout rate's like really, really high, man. They can't, a lot of, I mean, some people can, you know, but a lot of people fall out and then they rebound. They can't sustain it. Whereas the raw till 4 to me is, a lot of people can do that, you know, and it allows you a little bit of latitude socially to go out and eat or to blend with your partner who may not be all raw, or the kids may not be all raw, but you can make it to dinner pretty easy. And that's when you're like pounding the herbs, the spirulina, the fruit, the hydration, and it just runs through really quick. And then if you do a 36-hour a week water fast or a juice fast, or a couple of days a month, like that 72-hour juice fast, yeah, I mean, actually in reality you're like probably 85% raw. And then if you do like a summer cleanse with like all fruit for a month, or a grape fast or something like that, now you're probably actually up 85-90%, but you're actually have a little bit of latitude, right? Instead of trying to be like, I'm gonna really force this thing, and when you force too hard, you tend to get a rebound. I'm just telling you what I found works over time, because I'm doing this over 50 years, and it's like, yeah, and I've done the same thing, man, where I just like, yeah, man, I'm leaving in the blizzard. I'm gonna go live in a tree house. I'm gonna be a fruitarian in Costa Rica, and it didn't work, actually, for me, And there's some people that do it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there are definitely people that are on fruit, 100% juicy fruit, like 5-7 years. There's that Russian guy that lives in Thailand that looks freaking amazing. He looks like an Olympic swimmer. He's 6'3", 225 pounds, probably like 6-7% body fat. He did it, man, and it's definitely working. Like, the guy is amazing. His skin looks like baby skin, but the average person can't do it, and then they beat themselves up because they fail, right? And then they rebound, and it's like these wide swings from one extreme to another are really not good for your body. Like, you just a little bit of the middle path, but and then you throw a few periods in. You do a 30-day fruit fast in the summer, or if you juice fast for 2 weeks or whatever, and that works. But that's my experience. That's my perspective. It's like, I'm sure there's people that disagree with me, but that's what I personally did.
Yeah, I think raw 100% raw diet is really possible in the tropics, so where we belong. I think we humans are all from the equator originally, so I think here it really works. But yeah, I think also when you have a very stressful life, it can be very stressful to also like then have a raw diet, and then the most people end up then binging on something else. The only problem I have with cooked food in the evening is that it's like a slippery slope. Kind of, then you have rice, then you have pizza, then you have pasta, then it's like you make a lot of exceptions. Like, not many people eat clean, like millet and quinoa and potatoes in the evening. So it's often tend to that people eating something else.
I find what Letitia said to be definitely true. There's a reset point, right? And so once you have that first cooked food during the evening, which I recommend having in the evening and not earlier in the day, from there it's usually like, it's really hard to keep the ropes reined in at that point. And so we tend to eat, more cooked food. And the same thing, like if you're trying to do, if you're trying to do 30 or 60 or 90 days on all fruit or all raw, there's a reset thing. Once you have that first cooked food, it just kind of resets your satiation center, just like juice fasting or fasting. Like, right, the first 3 days can be kind of testing, and then you get to the 4th day and you're actually less hungry, right? And it's the same thing if you're on all raw fruit. Like after the 3rd day, it's a lot easier, right? But as soon as you have that first cooked food, you actually have to go for another 3 days or fast to get that reset of sensitivity. Otherwise, you're not quite satisfied, right? Like, you just it's like a reset that whole satiation point. So yeah, that's, I mean, she's 100% right with that. And I've found that to be true. So it's like trying to just take that into consideration. And the other thing is like you said, like, it's way easier to do in a tropical environment because we're tropical beings and fruit grows abundantly. I was in El Salvador about 4 years ago, and I was on all fruit, and I was going to the fruit market, and it was just picked yesterday. Like, the difference between doing that on all fruit and doing like in Arizona, stuff that's shipped 2 weeks ago from California and cost a fortune and tastes like cardboard. Night and day difference. And you're much more satisfied, right? So this is true. And then, like I said in the beginning, it's like the climate you live in, the time of year, and the work you're doing and the people you're living with. So yeah, if you're like super stressed out, it's going to present challenges. And if your partner is, which creates situations like, I can tell you, man, I've had my challenges with romance over the last 50 years, 30 girlfriends, and I don't think any of them were actually raw foodists. And so you're trying to do one thing and they're wanting to go out to dinner or, do something else. And it's like, it creates this dichotomy, and it's like, it definitely has an effect, the people you live with and the people you're around. If you have a nice cafe like this and you have people like Alex and you have a support group that's doing it, it's going to make it easier, especially in the tropics. If you're in, if you're in snow, and like in Belfast, man, that was, I did 100% raw for a year there, and it was brutal, man, because it's just like Arctic type weather and nothing grows, and even the vegetables tasted like crap, and there was no fruit basically, and like, yeah, you're freezing your ass off. It's hard. Like if you're in a colder climate like New York City, like there's a guy that was the runner, the ultra marathoner that did the Woodstock Fruit Festival. What was that? Not Ashton, it's
Ted's the runner.
the guy that was doing the ultra marathons and runs the Woodstock Fruit Festival. He actually went to jail for a little while for telling some fibs about his gem business to the courts or whatever. But this guy was on all fruit for like a couple of years, and just amazing. Like he was doing 100-mile races on it, and the point being, he would go to the warehouse in New York City. And so hubs like Amsterdam, New York City, actually, there's Eli Martyr in Toronto, and he's done it. He basically is all fruit for a long time. This amazing athlete, martial artist, stuntman. But the point being is you can go to the warehouse and buy by the crate, and you're actually getting stuff like, actually the fruit in Amsterdam is really good, because it's a hub, right? Like it's bringing stuff in from everywhere, whereas Belfast is not a hub, and it's horrible. So these things definitely have an effect, right? But you can do it, and once you're actually detoxified, you're not so sensitive to the cold. Anyway, does that make sense?
I'll surrender to this mic in a sec, but Alex, just curious, that since you've had a podcast for a long time, and you've done like hundreds of episodes on the light daters, like, do you have a particular standout guest that you had on the show, and who is it and what?
Yeah, thank you. Well, while we're here today, I was like, I'm definitely gonna ask you to come back to Ubud at some point soon to do a podcast if you call that, because I would love amazing.
Thank you so much. It's so gratifying and fun to be here with a community of people that resonate, because actually I don't talk most of the week, or not, I can't shut my mouth up here, but yeah, most of the week I don't talk much, right? Because I'm living alone, and I don't talk during my workouts, and I'm all alone most of the week and alone, so I don't talk much, which is why when I get an opportunity to talk, I can't shut up sometimes. So I apologize if I over talk. I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, which I probably have. Anyway, it just, in conversations in general, just like you can only meet people at the level they're at, and it's like you can't talk about some of these things to the average person, because you're just it's like they just don't register at all. It just goes right over their head. So yeah, I don't get an opportunity to actually talk about these things that I'm very passionate about. It's been, like a major part of my life. So I really appreciate that, Alex. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope I was able to share something of value on some level with some of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll be done soon, but we'll also to answer you, like I definitely love to have George. And in terms of standing out, I will say I've interviewed a lot of the leaders. I'll stay on the more on the raw food movement, even though I've guests in different fields of health and spirituality. And in the raw food, there are some people that are amazing teacher where I get a lot of knowledge from them. But then I feel there's also different levels of embodiment. So what I like when I spend like an hour or 2 hours with someone is, of course, I can't know their level of embodiment. Like I've been living with them for 5 years. It's only just a couple of hours, but I get a little bit more of the taste of the energy and of the person than just from Instagram Reels, for example. That's why I like podcasts. And so I definitely felt sometimes some people are like, whoa, you know a lot, and I'm learning a lot from you, and I don't lie. So I'm going to talk about the people who I felt, oh, they have a big authority and knowledge, and also I really feel a very good vibe. I had that with Dr. Moss when I did our podcast with Dr. Moss. I really felt a lot of love, and I really liked having him. Yeah, I'm feeling that with you also now, and that's why I'm excited to have a podcast. I felt that with Lou Corona also. I felt really good vibe from him, and obviously I might forget some because I've had like over 300 podcasts now, but then that's just some that stand out. And obviously the common factor here is the longevity and people who have been for a long time, and they're trend-led people. So there's a certain wisdom and depth there. So I also sometimes enjoy having someone young at the podcast, and have a Ted and like people who are more new faces there. But that's the ones that stood out. So yeah, Lou Corona, Dr. Moss. I've really enjoyed feeling your presence, George.
Hi, my name is Gaurav. I just want to say thank you because, like I was born in India and I've been in West more than half of my life. And, I meet a lot of people in yoga space. I'm into before for raw kind of food. I think I felt so nice listening to you. The way, the humbleness and the integration, because sometimes in raw vegan community, if you start eating cooked food, it's almost like, your kid from the way you presented and the view of yoga, it's really, really resonates with the way I understand, like we're not monks. And I really, I'm just thankful. That's all.
So I'll have the chance to ask more questions, but how about you guys? Are there any more, like maybe one or two last questions for today?
Always when I come across great teachers, I ask this one question. Like, what do you think is the most important thing in this lifetime? Like, what do you consider as the most important things for us to do?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like as you get older and you have more life year experience, I think it starts to hit home more. I mean, you realize that this particular lifetime is finite. We're not going to live forever. And you've been through, boga or enjoyment of worldly pleasures. I'm a guy like the success early in life after, getting a doctorate and making good money. So you have the ability to maybe attract attractive women and getting caught. And there's nothing wrong with having a good looking girlfriend that you're compatible with and your resumes look, but just getting caught and, the lust and making money early after you've had no money, and then getting caught in the greed and chasing, having brief samadhi experiences at 19, but then, coming out of school at 27, 28 and getting back on your feet and making money, and then getting lost in, you want to experience, like what's it like to have money and spend it and have beautiful girlfriends and nice trips and sensory pleasure, and then realizing like it's all good, but there's no lasting peace and pleasure through the senses. It's very transitory, and pleasure is very often followed by pain, right? And then you realize that you've had certain periods of pain in your life, and that God sometimes saves you from more suffering and pain later by giving you some pain and suffering, in the present or the past experiences that you've had. And just, trying to remember, like why are we here? We're here to awaken to our divinity, which is our birthright. We all have that seed of God in our souls, and we all have the ability to experience that fully. And so just, the things that actually matter, we all have to make a living in the world. We do have to make money. We have to pay our bills, and some of us have kids and commitments and whatever. But behind all of that, like having some anchoring, like trying to, in the midst of that practice every morning, taking a little time to read like Ananda Mahima or Nim Karoli Baba or some great, saint, somebody that has been awakened, and just trying to reaffirm and remember why we are here. We're here to awaken, and so not getting lost in all of the worldly stuff. You can do that too, like have worldly pleasures, but try to put some time and investing into, because it's something that grows with time. And like we're all here to move. We're all like a river moving back to the sea, and we hit little detours and little eddies, but eventually we're all going to end up back united with the sea and united with the one. And that's why you're here. You have a human birth, which is very valuable, and don't waste it just on chasing after material and sensory things. Like invest some time in, detoxifying, having, your body is a temple of the spirit, and having, purifying your body through different techniques, understanding the shock karmas, understanding some of the Ayurvedic rejuvenation protocols, because there's besides the herbs, there's different protocols to actually help detoxify your body. The shock karmas in Hatha Yoga are used to detoxify the body, because most people starting on the path have an excess of mucus and phlegm and acids in their stomach and their colon. And so there's different protocols to help you along the way in the beginning with that. And it's the kind of thing that I think is a real worthwhile investment. Like your practices kind of brings you home and anchors you in the midst of the ever-changing world that we're in, the ups and downs and the pain and the suffering and the gains and the losses. And I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we can close with sharing a bit what we have to, all of us. And maybe I'll start with you, Laetitia. Is there some closing thoughts you want to share? Also share a little bit what you're up to.
What I do at the moment, what I'm working on?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the moment I'm working on a membership because I also want to create a more online community to support more people, because I think I do a lot of one-to-one coaching at the moment. I also help people with juice cleansing or water fasting. And I actually also do a lot of energetic and emotional work, because a lot of stuff comes up when you start to cleanse and detox. And I would love to support more people in a group, and also just help the people also online more.
Mm-hmm. And my new website will be launching in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which is yogi-doc.com. And I'll be doing coaching as well as the video course, and posting regularly on social media, and just try to reach and help as many people as I can with the time I have left. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, George and Laetitia. And personally, I'm collaborating a lot with the Raw Temple here. As mentioned, we have a YouTube channel where you post this video, but you're watching right now the recording on YouTube. So thank you for being here. And the idea with the Raw Temple, we have the Raw Academy, also Raw Chef training that I've been mentioning at the beginning. So again, I'll get a link in the description for people who are interested in this. But the idea is really, to feature amazing people there, to give a voice to do food movement, but also health in general and spirituality and consciousness through this channel, and build the more beautiful world that hearts know is possible. So thank you for watching. If you're watching, thank you everyone for being here, and please a round of applause for the viewers. That's for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Raw Talks. If you enjoy our conversations, make sure to subscribe and also to receive the notification. So hit the bell so you know when we share a new episode. We also want this platform to be a community, to be interactive. So please, if you have any questions, any comment, share in the comment section below, and we'll read and answer to all these comments. And lastly, if you want to spread the movement, share with your friends, and also like this video. Thank you.